What's up, everybody? This is the Figuring It Out Finance Podcast, and I'm your host, Chris Rickenbaugh. My goal is to help young adults get started on their financial journey. So let's figure it out together. So today's podcast is going to be my first book review. I'd like to do these about once a week, and the first book that we're going to be talking about is the first personal finance book that I ever read. Now, it's not my number one all-time favorite, but it's where I started, so I figured that would be the first one and the best one to be able to review. And it's The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. And this is where I was introduced to some of the basic personal finance terms like 10% solution, paying yourself first, what about picking stocks and how difficult it is. And, as I started to read a lot of the other personal finance books, they all kind of compound on each other and they all kind of reference each other. So this one's a little bit more old school and it gets a little deep at times on certain subjects like insurance and retirement programs. And that's not exactly where the typical high school and college student is thinking. So that's why it's probably not going to be the number one book, but it is a really, really good starter book for people in their mid-30s and 40s and, starting to think about retirement with their jobs. But it's a learn to get rich slowly book. So a lot of these other books that you might be reading about real estate or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or just general personal finance, they're already teaching you how to do that a little bit quicker. So this is the get rich slowly game where you have a job and a 401k and you're looking at the retirement savings, figuring out families and insurance, and it's a perfect book for that. So I do recommend reading it, but diving in a little bit here, this is where I really learned about the 10% solution. So the 10% rule, which I did a TikTok about a few days ago. So the 10% rule is just saving 10% of your income. So as soon as you get paid, say it's $1,000 just for easy math, 10% of that, so $100 is going to go directly into your savings account. So they don't talk about emergency accounts or anything like the Dave Ramsey way, but after you've built up your emergency account, your 10% of that income is going to go directly into that savings. And that's where you're going to be building up that nest egg so you can afford those bigger things, those vacations, cars, houses. And that's where The Wealthy Barber really dives into it a little bit more and a little bit in depth. So that's where I learned it the first time. And then on that topic of saving, David Chilton also brings up paying yourself first. So what does that mean? Pay yourself first. It means like that 10%. So as soon as you get your paycheck, you take that 10% out. You put it in that savings and you don't touch it. So once you pay yourself first, you're not going to be able to take that out. Whatever's left over, you can take. So that 10%, that's a low number, but it's a low enough number to where it's not going to hurt anything you're doing. You're not really going to notice it. You can even bump that up to about 15% if you're new to it or think it's a little bit low. But just making it a small enough percentage to where you're not hurting yourself or making any huge changes in your finances. So keeping that 10% low, figuring out for a couple months, and then maybe bumping that percentage up a little bit is going to be more beneficial for you rather than starting at 20 or 25%, because that starts to get a little bit crazy for those higher earners. So where we're looking at for our college students, even if you're making $200 a month at a small role at your school, 20 months or $20 in savings for 12 months, you're looking at almost $250 saved up, just putting it aside. So every month, you still have $180 saved up or to spend. So that can go a long way in college, especially with all the fun discounts and deals that college do, a lot of free giveaways. And then even if you're living on campus, you can start looking at the house hacking rule, which I'll talk about at a later episode. So another one of the points the Wealthy Barber talks about is picking stocks. So he dives into investing a little bit, and he brings up rental properties, but picking stocks, his quote was, "Picking stocks successfully is very difficult, and most of us just aren't capable of doing it." So I heard a term talking to or reading a couple other books, if you're not willing to put in the 80 hours a week to be able to pick and trade stocks, then it's probably not for you, because you're not going to be able to learn the market terms. It's not something that you can hop on and make a quick trade. You really have to be studying these things to be able to benefit. So, if you're not interested in spending the 80 hours a week, I would probably look at the index funds. So the Wealthy Barber doesn't talk about that, but the index funds are the S&P 500. So it's the top 500 companies in the U.S. where they pool them together and they keep that updated. So, the bottom falls out, and they only keep the top 500 companies. And that's why it's always going to go up. And that way you're betting on the American economy rather than, just a whim, like trying to buy certain stocks like Tesla, which is doing pretty good. So rather than picking individual stocks, you could start looking at index funds. But like I said, picking stocks, it's going to be really, really tough unless that's your only job. Not impossible, but just really, really tough. So one of the other topics he talks about in investing is dollar cost averaging. So breaking down that really simply, it's putting your money in. Say you put your money in over the course of a year and you have $12,000, just to make it simple math, for 12 months. So dollar cost averaging would be putting $1,000 in every single month. So that would make sure at any time in the market, you're getting pretty much the average. You're investing in the highs, you're investing in the lows, and it's just set. That way you're going to get that even amount rather than, say, if you put all 12,000 in at one time and the market was really high and then it fell. So your 12,000 all of a sudden turns into 8,000. So the dollar cost averaging, you're picking the highs, you're picking the lows, and, with any type of investing, there is no guarantee. So the dollar cost averaging tries to leverage that money a little bit to make it a safer investment, but there really is no safe investment. So the compound interest was another topic as well, and Dave Ramsey talks about this. So if you've ever done the Dave Ramsey packet or school, so I went through this in high school where they taught us the compound interest. So you can apply that to any term in life, especially with goals and skills. And, if you just chop at it one time a day, if you move one stone a day, you're going to have 365 stones moved by the end of the year. And that's just the power of compound interest. You're going to have that small wall. But on the money side, say if you're investing $100 a month, and his graph kind of looks like at the age of when you start to get to your 50s and 60s is when it really starts to double and double. So they take a really low number. I don't have it in front of me here, but it shows you if you invest this small amount first, you're going to end up a millionaire super easy just by investing a little bit earlier. And then they show a graph where, say, the first graph was starting at 18, and then the next one is starting at 20, 23, or 25. And it's about a couple $100,000 difference. And that's the power of that compound interest, getting started early, putting that money in. because no matter what that second person does when they start investing at 23 or 25 compared to 18, they're still going to have that low number just because that first person got in a little bit earlier. So that's the power of compound interest. And that's playing the long game. That's a lot what Warren Buffett tries to do, and that's why he's so rich, as well as picking the right stocks. So the last topic we're going to hit, and that David Chilton hits in the book that I really like, is real estate as an asset. So to break down assets and liabilities, what is an asset? An asset is something that puts money in your pocket every single month. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket every single month. And that's the bare bones of it. So say you like real estate as an investment, and you're saying, okay, well, this is going to be an asset, and you rent it out as a rental property, or you rent it part of your house out, and you're cash flowing $100 a month. That is an asset because it's putting money into your pocket every month. Now, say it doesn't do as well and it's taking money out of your pocket, that starts to turn into a liability unless you look at the appreciation game to where you are earning money on that property and have plans to sell it. But either way, losing money every month isn't good. So a liability, on the other hand, this is where the rich dad, poor dad starts to come in and really break it down a little bit more. So real estate isn't all that simple and clear with this, because if you're buying a personal home and you're not renting out part of it, in that house, you're going to be paying that mortgage every single month, and therefore that house would be considered a liability just because it's taking money out of your pocket every single month. Because what you can't do anything with that equity. You're not going to use it to take your wife out to dinner. You're not going to be able to use it for a vacation. That money is going to sit inside that house and not be used at all. So you paying the mortgage would make that a liability because it's not earning any money. So on the flip side, to make it an asset, you would have to rent out that house and have it somehow put money in your pocket. Because when you're looking at real estate, the bank owns your house. Or if you sell or financed it, that other person owns that house. And what they're doing is you're paying that bank every single month. So that money really isn't going into your pocket. You're just paying the bank off. So that's the difference between the real estate asset and liability. And I'll definitely do a show about that at the end. But to wrap up here, The Wealthy Barber, I would definitely consider checking it out. The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. One of the simple ones to read no matter where you're at in life. And like I said, it's a little old school, and it gets a little deep on certain subjects that might be outside of the beginner's standpoint, say if you're in high school or college. But for those people that have jobs in their 30s and 40s and are really starting to think about, well, my kids have to go to college, well, I have to start thinking about retirement, this is going to be the book for you. Because even on the title, it says Everyone's Common Sense Guide to Becoming Financially Independent. So go check it out. Also, follow me on the socials on Instagram and TikTok, where I'm going to be posting the book reviews, and check out the website at figuringitoutfinance.com. Take that survey for me. There's two of them, a student survey and a non-student survey, for topics for me to talk about on here. Even if you have some book recommendations, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to check them out and give them a review. So stay tuned for the next episode, and thanks for tuning in.